Many pundits in the English media have been criticising Ruben Amorim's tactics, and some have even suggested that he changed them entirely to suit the players he has at his disposal. I find it a little bit strange that you bring in a manager that has a very distinct style of play and almost suggest he abandon everything that has made him successful because they're struggling. It would be like asking a painter to come and decorate your house, but on arrival you give him a hoover and a sponge and tell him to crack on. Without the right tools, his job is nearly impossible. One of these pundits that has been extremely vocal is none other than Manchester United legend Gary Neville. On commentary whilst United played Tottenham, comments such as, and I quote, "The gaps in that midfield, that's a tactical thing. They've been told to do that. The structure of the team is awful. You wouldn't see this in under 9s or under 10s football. The distance between the two central midfield players cannot be right." Really insulting comments from a person who is respected around the football scene, also a man who has actually had previous managerial experience. He managed Valencia in the Spanish top division after agreeing to a short-term contract of 6 months. He guided them to 10 wins, 7 draws and 11 losses. Only 3 of those wins actually coming in the league. He even led them to a 7-0 defeat against Barcelona in the Cup. And spoiler, it kinda happens again. He was then sacked after less than 4 months and has never since made his return to his managerial career, even stating he wouldn't criticise other managers because of how difficult it is. Well, today is the day I'm making Mr. Gary Neville the Manchester United manager so he can give these players a chance of redemption. With current injuries, league position and fixtures, let's see how he gets on. They're currently sitting in 15th, so can Gary Neville pull out a miracle? As recording this, Manchester United have literally just beaten Ipswich at home 3-2 despite being down to 10 men. This save will start before the Everton game, giving Gary a chance to rewrite history. Still being in 2 cups, one of which being the Europa League, there's still a lot to play for. But firstly, we need to put these players, who have sacked multiple managers by the way, into positions they understand and are more comfortable in. Aligning with Gary's philosophy, which from his time at Valencia was a 4-2-3-1/4-3-3 system, he decides to set them up in a 4-3-3 where pace and quick transitions will best utilise these players' strengths. With injuries, the squad is looking extremely bare. A back 5 of Onana, Mazraoui, Maguire, De Ligt and Dorgu, a midfield setup of Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes and Ugarte, with Garnacho, Dalot and Rasmus Højlund, the front 3. With United getting rid of most of their wingers, including Antony, Rashford, Sancho, which is now at Chelsea, players are going to have to play out of position, but I'm sure Gary will work his magic. First game under Gary Neville would be the Everton game, a game that ended in a draw, a 2-2 draw. Gary Neville would actually repeat the result, but this time a 0-0 scoreline. Things immediately went wrong for him as Dorgu would get himself injured in the first half, leading to an even worse injury crisis. A game that United actually failed to hit the target once. Attention was turned to Ipswich, a game, as previously mentioned, just finished 3-2. Gary's side would once more find themselves a part of a 0-0 draw, this time having 12 shots and 5 on target. It looked like the manager bounce was starting to happen. Fulham at home in the FA Cup was next, as a depleted United side looked to get their first win under the new manager. An extremely lacklustre 0-0 draw led to penalties after extra time. Bruno would step up and put United in front before Raul Jimenez misses Fulham's first. The next 5 penalties would be dispatched, even a Panenka from Xerxes. Emil Smith-Rowe stepped up taking his chance before the demigod from Sheffield stepped up putting the ball into the bottom corner, giving Gary Neville, his team, their first victory under this new regime. FC 20 were up next in the club's European campaign, playing away from home on a Thursday night. Rasmus Højlund would step up for the Red Devils, putting his side 1-0 up after 25 minutes. 10 minutes later, the Dane doubled his tally with a thunderous strike at the near post, much to Gary's pleasure on the touchline. The scoreline would be changed after a smart finish past Onana, leaving Gary twitchy on the sideline as he watches on in hopes he can last more than 4 months this time. The second half, Rasmus would carry on his great European goal-scoring record as he completes his hat-trick with a tidy, close-ranged effort. Xerxes, who was setting the right wing position on fire, headed home his first goal under Neville, putting United up 4-1. Rasmus would score his fourth just before being subbed off in the 80th minute to give Gary Neville his first win in normal time as the United boss. Carrying on in the league form, it was a knockback down to reality with Arsenal thumping 3 past them at home with a really poor performance at Old Trafford. The return leg at the Theatre of Dreams was the next game, and once more Gary's Manchester United were played off the park, not managing a single strike on target. It looked like the players once more had lost the enthusiasm of a new manager. Leicester was the next task. A tough side under club legend Ruud van Nistelrooy. It was not going to be easy. Bruno got the game flying with a curling effort in 4 minutes of play before Jamie Vardy smashing home just before the 20th minute equalising. Manchester United would manage just 1 shot in the entire second half, and the result stayed a draw, their third so far in the league under Gary. Finding it tough, Gary persisted with a 4-3-3 because it was simple to understand and easy to coach. Villa in the FA Cup, on the other hand, was going to be a real test. The first half would be one for the fans around Old Trafford that they would boo at the half-time whistle after seeing just 1 shot from the home side along with 38% possession. The second half would be just as the same as Marlon would smash home from inside the box, giving them a lead with just 10 minutes to go. Flapping on the side, Gary threw everyone forward, but to no prevail. United would be out of the cup, and what's worse, the chance creation of only 2 shots. Gary was under some real heat from Roy Keane in the studio. Sitting 14th in the league, Nottingham Forest were next on the list as a demoralised United team looked to bounce back against a very tough Forest side. Although Gary's team looked the more likely to score, Morgan Gibbs-White broke United hearts as he scored a worldie, giving them all 3 points. Next, it was Derby Day, a game that means something to every football fan. Noisy neighbours, a chance to get one over on the rival team that the fans from both sides would relish the whole week leading up to it. Watching from the touchline, Gary's heart would have sank, watching Erling Haaland smash in the opener after some terrible defending giving City the lead. Haaland would then double the lead after 35 minutes and then running to the touchline and celebrated right in front of the home dugout. Not even 3 minutes after, Kevin De Bruyne would give them the third goal, putting the game to bed, and it hadn't even reached half-time. Haaland would go on to miss another huge chance for them to put them 4 just before half-time. De Bruyne actually piled on the misery with the 4th, just before the ref had chance to blow his whistle. Flapping on the sideline, Gary looked distressed and angry, not knowing what was going on. PTSD from the game against Barcelona surely wasn't helping. The crowd booing the team off the pitch, it was Gary's task to bring the players back and somehow get back into the game. You should never count Manchester United out from late comebacks. It's in the DNA. The second half though, before Gary could even sit down in his nice warm heated seat, De Bruyne finished his hat-trick with a lovely right-footed finish. Standing on the touchline in his brand new Manchester United coat, I'm sure he wanted the ground to swallow him up. On the hour mark, Haaland would grab his hat-trick as City refused to let up on Gary's side, putting them 6 goals down in their own backyard. Whoever said tactics were hard, eh? The team would give up the ball from kickoff and give City their 7th, being the oh-so-generous team that they are. What was one more on the tally of an already horrific defeat? Haaland would second that thought as he smashes his 4th of the game, giving Gary Neville his brand new record in defeat, somehow surpassing a 7-goal thumping from the famous Messi, Suarez and Neymar combo. a thrashing 8-0 defeat to a rival at home would be the headlines the next morning. I'm sure they were all so conservative considering his prior position. The misery carried on as Athletic Bilbao would win 3-2 in the quarter-finals of the Europa League, giving them a tough reverse away day. Back down to 15th in the league, it was an away day to Newcastle next. Garnacho gives them an early lead, which they then hang on to, providing all 3 points in what was a very tough away day. It was now back to Spain, Gary's nemesis, as United looked to continue in the only competition that they had a chance of getting any silverware. The game would conclude to a boring 0-0 draw, putting Gary's men out of all competitions. At least they can now focus on the relegation battle that they're in. It was a relegation battle next as United took on Wolves at home. Garnacho would open the scoring once again, giving Gary a man he could rely on. Højlund would add to the injury list as Cunha fires Wolves back level. Garnacho would once more put his team on his back, scoring his brace before Larsson ruined the moments 5 minutes later with yet another leveller. The game would end 2-2, although United really struggled to create chances. Bournemouth would break the drawing streak of Manchester United in the league by winning 2-1 at home. One of United's biggest problems in recent times are leaks out from the club, and I'm not talking about the waterfall, which is Old Trafford. Dressing room leaks would come out, and it would come from the players not liking Neville's management style and questioning his credentials to manage this club. Casemiro would actually go to Gary Neville, let him know that the players are losing support and the club is just drifting at the moment. Gary actually responded with a very strong "F*** you." It was fair enough, really. United's next game was against Brentford, an always difficult fixture for United. Manuel Ugarte, the People's Champion, comes up with the winning goal with the only shot for Manchester United in the 88th minute. The last 3 games of the season were against West Ham, Chelsea, or in Gary Neville's words, and I quote, the blue billion-pound bottle jobs, and then Aston Villa. Being 11 points from safety of relegation, at least it couldn't really get any worse. A 2-2 draw against West Ham, a 3-3 draw against Chelsea, and a 1-1 draw against Villa ended what was a tragic few months for Gary Neville. With many fans demanding his head for the 8-0 drumming given out by City, it was uncertain times for the former player. Was it going to be déjà vu for the Mancunian manager and getting the sack, or was his best pal Sir Jim Ratcliffe going to give him another shot for next season? Losing half the dressing room, 6 losses, 8 draws and just 4 wins, a measly 22% win rate, it was hard to see why United would keep this tragedy going. But Sir Jim sees something special in him and decides to proceed to the next season with Gary on top. Although a precarious position, he is still in charge of Manchester United. Compared to what Ruben Amorim has done and will do at Manchester United, I think it's safe to say that the club is a poison chalice and anyone who comes in charge will fail regardless of tactic, structure or instructions. Management is not that easy, and for Mr. Gary Neville here, maybe he has a chance to fix things. What do you think? Should we give him a second season or leave management to the real ones who are dedicated to their craft? But that is everything from me today. If you have enjoyed today's video, make sure you leave a like. Also comment where you think Manchester United are actually going to end up in the table and how they're going to fare in Europe as well. I wanted to make something slightly different compared to my normal career mode videos. If you haven't actually checked them out, make sure you do. I do have a playlist on the channel. There are 4 videos and the 5th one is almost finished. I have unfortunately been a little bit sick, so the 5th one hasn't been fully finished yet, but it will do soon. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have an awesome rest of the day wherever you are, and I shall catch you in the next one. Bye bye.